Mary was a young black girl who lived in a small town. She loved her family, especially her mother, Grace. Grace was her best friend, her guide, and the person she trusted most. Mary was beautiful, kind, and full of dreams. She often told her mother everything, what she saw, how she felt, and the secrets in her heart. One day, while using her phone, Mary met John online. He was a white man who lived far away in another country. John was charming with his words. He promised her heaven and earth. He told her he would love her forever, never hurt her, and give her the life she had always dreamed of. Mary was taken by his kindness. Every day they talked. Every night they messaged. John made her feel special. He told her she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Slowly, Mary fell in love with him. Months later, John asked her to marry him. Mary was shocked but also excited. She quickly told her mother, Grace. Grace was worried at first. How could Mary marry a man she had never met in person? But Mary's excitement was so strong, and John's words were so sweet, that Grace did not want to break her daughter's heart. Mary said yes to John's proposal. John promised to bring her to his country, to take care of her, to treat her like a queen. The day Mary left home, her mother hugged her tightly and whispered, "My daughter, please be careful. Love is sweet, but not all sweet things are safe." Mary smiled and replied, "Don't worry, Mom. John loves me. He will never hurt me." But love sometimes hides shadows. And Mary was about to learn that not all promises are true. When Mary arrived in John's country, everything felt strange. The air was cold, the streets were different, and she barely saw anyone who looked like her. John welcomed her with a smile, gave her flowers, and held her hand tightly. At first, everything felt like a dream. He took her to restaurants, bought her clothes, and introduced her as his wife. Mary thought, this is my happy ending. But slowly, small cracks began to appear. John would sometimes make little jokes about her skin. "You're pretty for a black girl," he would say, smiling. Mary laughed nervously, not knowing if he was serious or joking. At first, she ignored it. She told herself, "At least he doesn't hit me. It's just words." But then, John's words became sharper. He would mock her accent, telling her to speak properly. He would compare her food to his and laugh that hers was strange. Mary tried to brush it off. She reminded herself, "He loves me. He brought me here. He gave me a life." But deep inside, she started to feel small. Every time she thought about telling her mother, she stopped. She didn't want Grace to worry. She didn't want her to think John was bad. So she kept silent. But silence can be heavy. And every day, John's true nature slowly came out. John began controlling Mary. He told her she couldn't go out alone. He told her not to make friends with other people. When she asked why, he said, "You don't belong here. People won't accept you." Mary believed him. She stayed at home, waiting for John to come back from work. But when he returned, he often ignored her. Sometimes he would bring his friends over, and in front of them, he would make fun of her. They laughed, and Mary smiled weakly, though her heart was breaking inside. Grace called often, asking, "Mary, how are you? Are you happy?" Mary forced her voice to sound right. "I'm fine, Mom. John loves me. Don't worry." But her mother could hear the emptiness in her tone. A mother always knows. The days turn into weeks, and the weeks into months. The beautiful love story Mary once believed in was fading away. John never touched her with his hands in anger. But his words, his sharp, cruel words, were like knives. "You're nothing without me. No one else would want you. You should be grateful I married you." Mary began to believe him. She thought maybe she wasn't good enough. Maybe she was lucky he chose her. Her bright smile dimmed. The happy girl who once shared everything with her mother was now quiet, hiding her pain. But Grace could still feel it. She knew her daughter was in trouble. And one day, she would find out the truth. Mary tried to adjust to her new life, but it was harder than she thought. She missed her mother every day. She missed the warm laughter of home, the food, the language, and the love. John was supposed to fill that space, but instead, he built walls around her. Whenever she spoke about her home country, John frowned. "Forget that place," he would say. "You live here now. Act like it." Mary wanted to argue, but fear kept her quiet. She didn't want to make him angry. She didn't want him to think she was ungrateful. So she nodded and swallowed her words. But silence has a way of eating the soul. At night, when John slept, Mary would cry quietly, her tears soaking the pillow. She wanted to call her mother and pour her heart out. But every time Grace's name popped on her phone, Mary wiped her tears, cleared her voice, and pretended everything was fine. One evening, Grace asked, "Mary, when are you coming to visit me? I want to see you." Mary's chest tightened. She whispered, "Simum, soon," but she knew she couldn't. John wouldn't allow it. He already said traveling back home was a waste of money. So Mary stayed. John's control grew stronger. He started checking her phone. "Who are you talking to?" he demanded. If he saw a message from her friends back home, he would snap, "Stop wasting time with them." "You have me now." Mary obeyed. She slowly stopped talking to her friends. Loneliness wrapped around her like a chain. But the strangest part was how John changed in front of other people. When his family came around, he acted sweet. He hugged Mary, smiled at her, and spoke kindly. Everyone thought they were the perfect couple. Mary forced herself to smile too. She played the role of the happy wife. But when the guests left, John's mask dropped. He returned to his sharp words, his cold eyes, his cruel jokes. "Why do you look so sad?" he would mock. "You have everything you want. Clothes, food, a home. What more do you need?" Mary wanted to say love. She wanted to say kindness. But the words never left her mouth. She stayed silent, believing maybe one day things would change. Then came the night that broke her heart even more. John had been drinking with his friends. When he came home, he was laughing loudly. Mary tried to welcome him with food, but he pushed the plate aside. "Why do you keep making this nonsense?" he shouted. "Can't you learn how to cook real food?" Mary froze. She had spent hours preparing the meal. She wanted to please him. She wanted to show her love. But his words crushed her. John stood up, looked her in the eye, and said, "You're lucky I even married you. Do you think anyone else would want a black girl like you in this country? You should thank me every day." Mary's chest tightened. The words stung more than any slap could have. She ran to the bathroom, locked the door, and cried silently. She looked at her reflection in the mirror. Her eyes were red, her face pale. She whispered to herself, "Is this love? Is this what I left home for?" But deep inside, another voice whispered, "This is not love. This is a cage." Days passed, and Mary tried to convince herself to be strong. She told herself, "Maybe if I try harder, John will change." She cooked better meals, dressed the way he liked, and stayed quiet when he mocked her. But no matter what she did, his words only grew harsher. "Look at you. You don't belong here. You should be grateful I gave you a chance. You're nothing without me." Slowly, Mary started to believe him. Her confidence faded. She stopped dreaming. She stopped smiling. Grace noticed. Each time she called, she could feel her daughter slipping away. "Mary, are you sure you're happy? You don't sound like yourself." Mary forced a laugh. "I'm fine, Mom. Don't worry." But mothers always know. Grace prayed every night, asking God to protect her daughter. She knew something was wrong, but she didn't know how deep the wound was. And Mary was drowning in silence. Mary's life with John had turned into endless nights of tears and days of silence. She thought she had no strength left. She thought she was trapped forever. But then, one day, something shifted. She was walking through the park when she saw a young girl laughing with her mother. The girl reminded her of herself years ago, full of life, full of dreams, full of love. Mary froze. For the first time, she saw what she had lost. She saw how far she had fallen. That night, when John mocked her again, calling her worthless, Mary didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just sat in silence. But in her heart, a seed of courage had been planted. The next morning, she called her mother. For the first time, she told Grace everything. The insults, the control, the pain. She cried as the words poured out, but this time the tears weren't just of pain. They were of release. Grace listened quietly. When Mary finished, her mother said softly, "My child, love does not hurt. Real love never breaks you. Come home." It was as if a heavy chain fell off Mary's shoulders. She finally understood. Abuse wasn't just bruises. Abuse was anything that crushed the spirit, anything that tore down the soul. A week later, with her mother's support, Mary packed her bags. She didn't wait for John's approval. She didn't explain. She simply walked out the door. John shouted after her, but she didn't stop. For the first time, Mary chose herself. Back home, Grace welcomed her with open arms. Mary cried in her mother's embrace, but this time the tears were healing. Slowly, she began to rebuild her life. She found strength in her story, courage in her scars. Months later, Mary stood before a group of women, sharing her journey. She spoke about the pain, the silence, and the lies she once believed. But most of all, she spoke about freedom, the kind that comes when you choose love over fear, truth over lies. Her story became a light for others trapped in the shadows. Mary learned the hardest lesson of all. Real love uplifts, protects, and nurtures. Anything else is not love, it is abuse. And as she looked toward her future, she smiled again. Not the forced smile she once wore, but a real smile, full of hope. Because Mary had found herself again. And that was the beginning of her true love story, the love of a woman who finally knew her worth.